Hello and welcome to another episode of Trash to Track. In this episode we're going to be looking at this Hornby 153 single car DMU that's been sent in by Alan. Now Alan says that this model refuses to run but the lights are working. So I'm hoping it's not a PCB issue and that it is a loose connection or gummed up motor. Now these models are relatively easy to work on. Their body is a clip fit onto the chassis, so no screws involved. But I'm just going to put it on a bit of test track. Now I need to extend the track because this is a long model. So I'm just going to clip another bit on there. I'll give it a quick battery test to see what's happening. And putting the battery on, the model is trying to move ever so slowly forwards. And the lights on this end closest to the camera don't appear to be working. The lights on the other end are working because I can see them reflecting in the magnetic tray. So we'll take the body off and have a look what's going on. Now, as I said, this is a clip fit. Now, you could use cocktail sticks or card to do this, but I use just with my thumbnail along one side, unclip it, and then unclip the other side, and the body shell just lifts off. And upon lifting the body off, one of the lighting units from one end of the unit is loose. So I'll need to fix that back into position. Now I'm going to have to remove this PCB because the motor bogie assembly is clipped in place, and I need to drop that motor bogie out really to have a look at the motor and that. So I'm just going to unscrew this small PCB and just lift it out of the way and loosen the wires. And when both screws have been removed, you can see there that it's clipped in place, as are most modern Hornby DMUs. I'm just loosening the wires there, and then releasing the clip allows the motor bogie to drop out from underneath. Now everything is soldered together on this, so I'm going to try and work on it without doing too much unsoldering because there is a lot of wires in this model. So there's the motor bogie unit all clipped together, and the bogie frame's a clip-on piece. So I'm going to lay it down and I'm going to attempt to work on it like this. So I know some people would desolder it, but there's so many wires under here for lighting, etc. Now I'm going to take the DCC blanking plate out and test the motor directly. The reason I take the DCC blanking plate out is I don't want any feedback current from the motor to damage any of the LEDs. And when I put power directly to the motor, it is struggling. It's trying to move, but it is really, really slow. So it's going to have to come out and we're going to have a look. Now the bogie frame is a simple clip fit affair. That just unclips, and I've just got the NEM coupling stuck in the step there. But once that was out, the wheels are a clip fit as well, and the motor is clipped into place. So I'm just going to unclip the motor casing. There's one clip underneath and two clips on the top. You have to be very careful when you're doing this not to break the clips, otherwise it won't hold the motor in place securely. So there we go. And that reveals the motor and gear setup. Very simple, no flywheels. Just a dual-ended motor running the two gears to the drive wheels. And I think it's become immediately apparent what's wrong with this model. The grease that Hornby have used has solidified. That is extremely sticky. And it's worse than earwax. It's so sticky and horrible, and it is preventing the gear train from moving around. So testing the motor there out of the gear tray, you can see it's spinning a little bit better now, but I'm going to give this a good clean with the contact cleaner. And once that's been sprayed and cleaned off, the rest of this horrible thick grease, look at that, is going to be removed with a combination of toothpicks, cotton buds with methylated spirits. And now I've oiled the bearings and cleaned that off. Look how fast that's spinning now. So I'm pleased that the motor hasn't burnt out on the model, because sometimes if you try and run these models with these gummed up grease, you can damage the motor. Other Hornby models I've had that have come across this are the 50s, 60s and 56s. The grease just solidifies in them and prevents them from running. Now this horrible grease is everywhere. It's all over the axles, all over the gears, obviously inside the casing. So I'm not going to bore you with footage of me using copious amounts of methylated spirits and cotton bud. I'm going to clean all this out, and then I'm going to come back to you when it's done. The two gears you can see there are removable, so I just lift those out and give everything a thorough clean up and get rid of all traces of this horrible thick grease. So now that's all done, you can see now it's looking a lot cleaner, and I have put a small amount of oil on those gear spindles. The motor sits back in place, and before I seal it back up, I am going to give it some fresh lubrication with some Lubel 106. Now this is good stuff, this will work its way through the drivetrain and lubricate all them parts, and hopefully keep Allen's 153 in service for many years to come. So that's all freshly greased. The motor is then clipped back together, or the motor casing, sorry. And then we'll turn our attention to cleaning the wheels and the pickups. And then one thing I am going to do is I've got to resolder the capacitor back on. Now I'll remove this because without removing this, I would not have been able to remove the motor from the case. Right, I'll just stop doing the voiceover there for a minute while the RAF were playing overhead. But now they've gone, as I was saying, I'm going to reattach the capacitor, because without removing that I could not remove the motor because the wires go through the motor casing. So once that's on and I'm satisfied that it's joined up correctly, I'm going to refit the one of the wheels onto the motor bogie. I'm not going to put both in because these need cleaning, but I'm just going to put one in and then refit the DCC blanking plate and give it a test to see how the motor spins now, just to make sure there's no other condition or problem with this model that's preventing the motor from running. So there's the DCC blanking plate. I'm just going to put that back in the PCB, making sure it's orientated correctly with pin 1 to hole 1. And then using a battery on the other pickup bogie, you can see the wheel there is spinning really nice and really fast. So that proves that that hardened grease was preventing Allen's unit from running. So using my tried and tested method now of cotton bud and mess, I'm going to give all the wheels, wheel backs and pickups a clean. Whoops, I knocked the camera there. And just holding the pickups in place with those pliers, I can push the wheel back in and let them go. And they are all making contact with the rear of the wheels. Now these 153 units are quite reliable runners. I did used to have a Regional Railways one, and I actually quite like these models. I'm also putting a little bit of grease on the gear train underneath the on the drive wheels there, just because we removed all traces of old lubricant from this model. And would you believe, I just remembered that when these models first came out, they were £50. $49.99 is what I paid, brand new, for a Regional Railways 153. That's incredible, really, when you think about it. And Helgen have actually just announced a new model of this, so it'll be interesting to do a side-by-side comparison, as the Hornby model of this unit is a very good model. So now that everything's done, I can put the screws back in on the PCB and tidy the wires up, make sure there's no wires snagged or caught that would prevent the unit from running around corners. Just got to line up the screw holes there. It wasn't the easiest thing to do because it kept pulling itself back with the tension from the wires. But the PCB's all back in place, and I think Allen's 153 is now ready for service. The only other thing I've got to do is clean the wheels on the dummy pickup bogie. So this is all-wheel pickup on this model, which helps for the reliable running. And again, this is done with a cotton bud and meths, which is usual. The one thing I also did, which I didn't mention because I was rabbiting over, is I put some oil on just on the plastic clips where the wheels go in, just to lubricate it a little bit, because I really do not like the fact it hasn't got any bearings in it. Now the lighting unit that came adrift, I'm going to use a small, very small slither of black tack to hold it in place. I don't want to use any sort of adhesive or any plastic weld cement, because if it leaks through the holes where the LEDs go, it's going to ruin the paint on the front of the model. So just putting a very small amount in there and spreading it around with a screwdriver. That should hold that lighting unit in place for the foreseeable future. And then it was a case of clipping the body shell back onto the model, and we'll test now to see if it works. The one side of this model, the LEDs are wired in, and the other end is those stupid spring pickups. Now when I've put the body back on and give it a battery test, you will see that the lights on this end are not working, which is where the spring pickups are. Apart from when it's going backwards, so the reds work. The lights on the other end will work, because like I said, this is a self-contained, fully wired LED unit. Why Hornby didn't use that on both ends, I'm not sure. So I take the body shell off again and adjust these spring pickups. Now this isn't the most reliable of things to do, and what I ended up doing, because of how the springs were, I ended up coating the brass tabs in the unit itself with solder to build them up a bit. And then when I put that back on, you can see there the springs are making good contact. And now all the lights are fully working on the unit just as they should be. So that's it. So that is the rebuild complete. And as I said, I do like these 153 models. There's a lot of rivet detail. They look good for what they are. But it'll be interesting to do a side-by-side comparison with the Helgen model when that comes out. Although that is going to command a significantly higher price than these Hornby models do. If you've got an engine or piece of rolling stock you'd like to see featured on a future episode of Trash to Track, please email me at dansmodelrailways@gmail.com. Have a look and get it sent over, and who knows, it may even feature in an episode all of its own. So I'm going to run Alan's 153 on the Garden Railway for a bit. Now it's September now, so chances of running outside are becoming slim. But I'm going to have a play around with it for a couple of hours, make sure it's all good, and then I'll get it packed up and sent back to Alan. Thank you so much for watching Trash to Track again. Please like, share and subscribe. I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye for now.